I'm Don Williams, live in Burke Burnett, Texas. I grew up down in Randolette and Duval area. Moved away for about 30 years, and here a few years ago I was in a little accident and had some spare time on my hands and started writing some cowboy poetry. So I'm not an old hand at this, and I haven't been before a group similar to this before, but I'm going to try to write one that I wrote a couple of years ago called Old Cowboy Dreams. The old cowboy dreams of days gone by when he could still make a hand. Honesty and character were not just words, and men really rode for the brand. He longs for the life on the open range when he could ride his pony for days and never see a fence or broken ground. How he loved them old cowboy ways. He slept on the ground with a tarp for a bed, and for a pillow he used his old saddle, and he'd take his turn at night riding herd and sing cowboy songs to the cattle. Yeah, I never dreamed there'd be a day when they cut up the trails with wire and be no chuck wagon or cookies, beans, or spinning yarns by the fire. But sure, there'd been a time or two when it was anything but fun, when the thunder rolled and the lightning flashed and started the cattle to run. If you had to turn the herd in the dark, well, that's when you had to be tough and find out what you was made of if you really had the stuff. It was not that his tough needed proving, but it was just something he had to do. But it sure was a risky endeavor for his pony, old Bill, Ben, and him too. Well, old Ben, he called his favorite horse, was named for a long-lost friend. Both man and horse had a lot of heart, and they'd stick with you to the end. Then there was that time at the river when they had to cross the Red. He knew they couldn't be driven in, somehow they had to be led. Well, he'd been riding lead for a while, so he was the first one in. And when they come out alive on the other side, he sure was proud of old Ben. But those things didn't happen too often. Most days had a peaceful end. He rested at night with the moon and stars and the embers that danced in the wind. And watching the sun rise over a bluff and breathing that fresh morning air sure was a good way to start the day without a worry or care. He'd have a cup of campfire coffee and cold beans from the day before, and a fresh horse to ride and cattle to drive, and never ask for anything more. They say it darn near killed him when they had to quit riding the plains. They had plowed up the prairie and fenced it in, and it just never would be the same. And they were still a few big outfits with plenty of room to ride and see the smoke of the branding fire and smell the iron on their hide. So he tried that bunkhouse living, and it was all right for a spell, but he missed the wide open spaces and the stories them cowboys would tell. Well, that's when he sold his old saddle and the rest of his gear he throwed in to a cowboy he knew was headed out west, a friendly young poke named Ben. Well, now without a horse and a saddle, the cowboys got nothing to do, and the years of roping and branding had finally taken their due. But he'd made his peace with the maker from the last words of a friend. Said, "Get yourself right and meet me up yonder, and we'll race them ponies again." He'd never met a man as tough or one as honest and true. When the trail went bad and the going got rough, well, his character showed right through.